Welcome to Dear Alice, a lifestyle approach to interior design.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dear Alice. Today we have a fun treat for you. We have our very own Brad Mee. He's our editor-in-chief of Utah Style and Design magazine. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, he's also the lifestyle editor of Salt Lake Magazine and of Boca Raton Magazine, all the way in Florida.
Kind of an odd mix.
Awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
I like, though, that it stretches kind of coast to coast, and then you can give us a nice snapshot of what editors are looking for today.
Sure.
Stu and I thought this would be an awesome podcast because so much of our work is like getting things to the finish line so we can shoot it so that hopefully we can turn it over to an amazing editor like Brad and that he'll want to feature our magazine if it's in line with what he's looking for. And since we have such a big audience of interior designers, or many of you at home that might wonder, how is a story picked up in your favorite shelter magazines? Brad's going to help us know the right way to do it, what people are looking for today in publishing. And also there's a little bit of etiquette involved. So I think we could school people on that.
Yeah. And listeners, I just want you to know, like designers like that, like I remember being in school and like you write down your goals and you're like, I just want to be published. I just want to be published. And so that is the goal, is to do all this hard work, years of work, to then just see it in a glossy printed magazine, right?
Feels like payday.
You could actually like grab the pages. And now we have like online features and everything, but there's still something so great when you're printed.
Yes, ma'am.
It's magic.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Right.
Like it's
So
just
romantic.
still such a rite of passage, I feel like.
I think so, yeah.
You know?
Totally. So we've known Brad for coming up on 15 years, I think.
That long.
So crazy.
It seems-
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems so much
Just like
longer in a way.
yesterday.
Think of so much has happened in 15 years for you,
Yeah.
and for
And
us.
for you guys.
Yeah, totally. How long has Utah Style and Design been around?
So we celebrated 25 years last year.
Amazing.
So we had a fun issue where we got to go through the archives and pull out our favorite stories and highlight them and
Best
some
of
of our
album.
mistakes and that sort of thing. And then I've been at the helm for 20 of those years.
Amazing. Yeah. So
I'm
cool.
fast.
So cool. It feels like it's always been there, and it's always the latest issue in the hotels. I feel like all the best hotels, Grand America, everything in Park City, St. George, I feel like all have the latest issue of Utah Style and Design.
It's, it's a marketing tool, right? So the audience in those hotels, they want to see what's going on in Utah.
Yeah.
It's how we're living and how we're designing our environment. Those
So
people come to
cool.
Utah, they're excited about.
Right. I feel like there's been a massive influx, obviously, of people moving in
Sure.
to Utah, but just in general, we do work everywhere, and
Right.
they're always saying, they're like, what is in the water in Utah? I keep like, there's so many designers in Utah specifically, which is wild that we just have such a surplus.
Well, that and 20 years ago, I was, I'd be on an airplane and someone would say, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm the editor of Utah Style and Design magazine. And then they're invariably, oh, Utah and style? How does that work? It's not anymore.
Oh, good.
People, we're on track. I mean, people
That's
think
so
about
exciting.
more than half of your projects are out of state, probably. I would guess
Yeah. 80%.
80%.
Yeah. It's the
Actually,
norm now.
We're so
Yes.
tired.
People are coming.
We wish we were doing it more in Utah. So we need to
Utah listeners,
we need to
wanna work for
focus.
you.
Well, we love it all over, but it's so easy to work in our own state. I mean, we warehouse here, we work here.
And we have the best craftsmen
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
in Utah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really, there is so much. I don't know. There's a sense of mystery about Utah, I think, and the design that we have. I mean, we're not pigeonholed to mountain or coastal, or we have everything.
Yeah.
And the pool of talent we have and the artisans is they're coming and taking it from us, right? We're sharing it with everybody now.
Totally.
And for me, it's just beyond exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I was just talking with Anne-Marie Barton the other day. We had a trade event, and she was just saying, we have such a beautiful, rich pool of fantastic designers, but also fantastic artisans. And I said, I know we're designing range hoods and railings and shipping them out of state cabinetry and driving them to Seattle, Washington, and to California, and using our trades here to go there to do real custom work. Otherwise, they're like ready-made cabinetry or semi-custom cabinetry. And so if we want to do something rogue or interesting in design or break a rule, they don't have the tradespeople to support them. And so we have to do it in our own state and drive it there.
Right.
Fascinating.
And I've heard that
wow.
even a designer will pull a builder in
yeah.
here. I mean, to pull a builder and go somewhere else when they have more than enough work here,
Yeah.
but it's the only way to get that product that is as good as. And Anne Marie Barton, I mean, she's another one. I mean, it's
just
killing
stellar
it.
work. Yeah.
Unicorn for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, tell everybody, how did you get into publishing, Brad?
I'm one of those stories that I had no idea. Right? So, there's more, I think, of those than you really realize.
Yeah.
I went to business school, emphasis in marketing at the University of Utah, and I think there was kind of some like mystique to advertising. You know, it's that bewitched Darren character who had to get to all this creative stuff, so I moved to Arizona. Actually, my brother lived there, and I started as a copywriter for something like your business. It was a high-end furniture group with design studios. And ended up being their advertising director. So that involved photo shoots and placing ads. And somewhere in that mix, a packager publisher in Northern Utah, Jill Packham, she's a powerhouse, came to me and said, would you consider writing a book? Because I had the writing background and I had kind of that secondary design knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's when I learned you don't say no to opportunities, even if they don't make sense to you at the time.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, let's do that. And after the first book, we signed on for 6 total.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What is the book now?
So it was a series called Design is in the Details. And I think some of these were in the 90s, early 90s. There are still some of them being published. I don't know if the whole 6, the group is. And then from there, the publishers of this magazine reached out and said, we have a kind of a little sideline book that goes with our city magazine. Would you consider working with us on creating that? Let's make it a quarterly. Let's get it its own subscribers. Let's do this.
Amazing.
I thought, sure, let's do it. So again, I'm not going to say no. And it works out really well.
That's so cool.
Amazing.
It's just not a direct line.
That's amazing. No, I feel like that is really direct. And like, obviously being in design, you learn all of this knowledge and you've got this beautiful way of speaking about it. And you can spot a winner, which I think what people like from doing the magazine for so long. And I feel like that's one of the things our listeners are going to love hearing from you is like, how do we know if my project's good enough to publish, right?
Sure.
So I don't know if you can kind of take us on that journey, just to help our listeners know 2 things. First off, I feel like, how will they know their project is good? Is it okay to submit anything and kind of learn as they go? Or in general, are publishers looking for X? Do you know what I mean?
Whole homes, features, how do they learn?
Yeah. And for instance, one of the things that we've learned at Alice Lane is that we can't go to print unless we have a kitchen, a primary, living spaces, a powder bath, right? And so some homes,
shelters,
like we just barely shot a recent home and we didn't do the kitchen on the house. The homeowner kind of went rogue. We really don't like the kitchen at all. And we're like, let's not even shoot this kitchen. But then in our minds, we're like, we can't get published then. We don't have a kitchen, but we have the rest of the house. Is there certain things that you need for certain that you have to check? Like, let's say a designer just worked on one room in a house.
Sure.
She can't just submit that living room that turned out fabulous, right? You want a whole feature.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
So let's take I would look at maybe your kitchen that was on the home of House Beautiful, or cover of House Beautiful. Did you submit the whole house or just the kitchen? They were having a kitchen issue probably.
Exactly. Yes. It was the kitchens and bath feature for your House Beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
So
good point.
We actually, in all the real estate of an individual issue, we have 3 to 4 complete home features. And every magazine has a different way of presenting their content. That's where we let everything out, that, full bleeds, let's just show off the rooms. And so, and not all shelter publications are doing that right now, but that's where we think it really goes. So in that instance, it's a whole home, but I'm a magazine junkie. So I love to go back to old issues of really the good staples from, decades ago. I mean, I have shelves and shelves because I always, in my mind, think you have to have a kitchen.
Yeah.
Because everyone wants to have, that's the hub of the home. That's where we live.
That's where we start.
But I started noticing that some of the really engaging content didn't have kitchens. And so I tried to figure out how they got away with that, frankly. And so I'm now more open to the idea that there doesn't have to be a kitchen in a feature, but there better be that other room that you just melt.
Yeah.
You see it, right?
Yeah.
And not every project that we show is a complete home. We do, as you get further towards the front of the book, we do have departments as opposed to features. And it may just be our discussion of a single bathroom, or we dissect, I think in the current issue, we have a playroom, but it had so much design in it, things to talk about and tips and ideas. It ended up being a 6-page feature.
Amazing.
Right, but it was one single room. So no, I think.
Okay. So the advice to the designers listening would be, if you have something spectacular, still submit it, because they might just do a single room feature on it. That
I would
you
be
don't know.
receptive to it. And I think maybe the explanation, when we ask for submissions, we want some sort of an explanation of the project and why it's relevant, why it's important. And I think if it's a room that really deserves that, I would submit it. And maybe if they're not specific and asking for full home features, I would just do it. I'd sing the praises of that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of your projects, you may be fortunate enough that every project involves the entire home, but a lot of designers are called in for room by room.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to the last part and have a full room, the homeowners moved into the first room and it's no longer what they created.
Yes, totally.
So, 5 kids.
So,
Yeah.
right.
we got to fluff that up and bring in some extra throw pillows for that shoot. Yeah, totally.
So I think you can do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
How do they submit?
So for us, once I've started working with somebody, then it's a direct connection.
Yeah.
But we on our website have a submittal portal.
Okay.
Would you say that's kind of an industry standard? Let's say that wherever these people live, do most magazines have a portal for submissions?
Want to be
resource kind of.
And is there kind of a grace period in which, let's just say, because this has happened to us before, where we're trying to get something published and it just takes so long to hear back. And so maybe they're not interested. Do I self-publish? Do I just put it on Instagram at this point? Because I don't know if they're going to pick it up. Do I send it to the next magazine? Do you send it to all the magazines, and who bites first? What's the etiquette for the designer in playing with editors and knowing if they have a chance or not?
I'd be interested in your input. I can tell you what we believe.
Yeah.
But you all have been in a lot of publications and you've dealt with a lot of editors. For us, we're a quarterly magazine, right? So if someone submits a home, let's say we have these beautiful homes in the mountains and the landscape out the window is snow covered, it's just dreamy, right? That's only going to work in a winter issue.
Yeah.
And if they submit that to me in the previous spring, that's 9 months until we could possibly present that. I will typically, if I'm on my game, I will at least respond and say, there's something here I like. May I get back to you in about 4 more months when I talk with maybe we'll lay it out with our art director and really see how it feels. Or maybe we'll know, I want that like yesterday, and we'll commit to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes there is a required period of time just because of that seasonality.
Yeah.
I think there's so many parts of what you just asked me. One, you don't submit to multiple publications at one time. And editors understand every other publication out there has a place for a designer. Designers may want a very local audience in which they'll come to their local or regional publications, or they may want the exposure of the national. And I've often told someone, listen, if there's a national involved, go. And more often than not, they end up drumming their fingers for a really long time. And I do have to say, if it's too long, and you guys have also exposed this through social media too much, it kind of dilutes its power once we run it. But we try to respond within yes or no, or can you give us a little more time within 2 to 4 weeks? But it can be that we hold it out for not a full year, but close if it's that kind of seasonality.
Yeah.
If it's good, submit it. As soon as you have the finished shot, submit that. Even if it's a winter shot in the spring.
Right,
Just
because
so
you
you can
never
keep it in your
know.
bookmark.
You never know. And if it's a full home and the editor, there's a powder room that's just knock your socks off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it has no windows. I mean, that could be in any issue. And the editor may say, I don't know that I have a place for that home, but that powder room is it.
Yeah.
So you almost have to just create that dialogue, and hopefully the editor or the edit team will work with you that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we try to do.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. Okay. Another question. If a designer is working with a regional magazine, much like Utah Style, and they're a Utah designer, can they submit a project that they're doing in Texas, or does it need to be a Utah home because it's in Utah Style and Design?
So obviously we have a lot of out-of-state readers, and they want to see Utah homes in our Utah magazine.
Yeah.
But our magazine is as much about celebrating our professional, our designers, our architects, as it is about celebrating Utah. Yeah. So absolutely. And
just submit it if it's great.
Submit it if it's great.
Okay.
Because we can always relate that to, as a writer, that's just fun.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you just totally knock it out with mountain homes. But how did you do this beach home in the Caribbean somewhere or something?
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, that is. We think it's fun too.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell people, designers in particular, about the etiquette of when to post on social media when you have something in queue to be printed or digitally to come out? What's the best etiquette that you can share? So
I'll tell you how we do it, and maybe you can pop in and I'd love to hear what your experience has been. Yeah. So we're a quarterly publication. So let's say you have this just amazing project, and honestly, we have at tops 10 to 12 pages to cover that project, which means not every image is going to be in there, and not every room is going to be in there. So for me, I mean, we're lucky enough to be on a scale where I can actually talk with the designers and really I hate to use the word negotiate, but maybe what we will do is say, listen, I understand this is a great project for you and you need to build your business and you need to market yourselves. Maybe let's have you hold out this part of your project and you can go celebrate that online until we run. I know we've had the luxury of working with you on a couple of things where we timed the online reveal. And so we kind of do that powerful punch online.
Yeah.
And so we try to schedule that and figure out what works well with the designer and with our schedule. And basically it's really a win-win. That's what we aim for.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
So, but what have you found?
We do the same thing. I mean, we of course have been around for 15 years before Instagram was around. And so the rule was always let the magazine is king. It shows it first. And then we can start to share all the subliminal images about the space and the story on our end once the magazine, but they lead the charge and then we follow. Today, we just do it in tandem with them, but we don't try and share any of the story. We might show pitch trays and sketches of us creating the space, but we never show the finished images from the photographer. We let the magazine show that first.
I think that's the safest approach.
I feel like that's the etiquette. Yeah. And because we've been around long enough, that's just the way we've always done it. So I don't know if the rules have changed. I know publication wise, you can be in print or you can choose to go digital. And we should probably talk about the power of those because we had one story that was Angie Harrington, who's a Salt Lake City housewife. We had her images for 2 years and we're waiting for those to get picked up. And so we couldn't share it. And it was so frustrating. I mean, finally El Decor Spain picked it up, which we were super excited about, but it was a digital feature.
Yeah.
No.
I think it was House Beautiful.
House Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. I'm getting my wires crossed. Yeah. So anyway, you just kind of sit around and you wait and you wait and you wait. And then you're like, my gosh, I feel like this is so hot right now.
Client's like, when are you going to put my images up? And you're like,
so then House Beautiful says, we're going to go and it's going to be digital. And we're like, whoa.
We've sat on this for 2 years for digital.
We want this to be print. And then we say to the client, what's best for you? Do you want? And so we're talking back and forth and we're like, I feel like it has more opportunity to go viral if it's digital. Okay. And it'll be faster than waiting for print because that would be 4 more months. Sure. So then we decide for it to go digital, right?
Yeah.
But then it gets caught behind a paywall. nobody can look at it unless they subscribe to the online magazine. So then she couldn't share it, which she's an influencer. So she has a lot of people that want to go see her story, right? From Bravo and everywhere else. We have our influence of so many hundreds of thousands of followers that can't go see the story until it gets unlocked. So it's the most anticlimactic thing. And we were like, did we do the wrong thing? Should this have just gone in print? So we're like, Brad, tell us how to play the game.
I like the fact that you're so savvy, because basically any editor wants to hear you say, no one has seen this.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
That's what they want to hear.
Yes.
But I have to say, I'm very sensitive to the fact that, I mean, you guys have a lot of projects, right? Mm-hmm. And you're very smart you're very marketing savvy. So a lot of beginning designers get that one project, and that's the one they had photographed. And we want to encourage this kind of the up and comers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just don't feel right about making them sit on their one story for a year when they're trying to build their business. So on maybe it's because we are on a smaller level. We're not a national or a regional, but I'd like to find a way that we can work together on it, frankly. And there's also a way to present a project. I've had some say, listen, we have been on digital in El Decor digitally. And I said, send me the link, let me look.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone does wonderful things, but I can sometimes look at those and think, oh, I missed the boat. Those images, how is that a quarter page when it could have been a spread? So all of a sudden I say, no, don't you worry about it. We're going to make you really feel that house.
Yeah.
And so that's
great.
I think that's a lot.
So even if it's been featured somewhere else, you could still reach out to maybe
like in print,
your regional magazine, or even digitally, like you said, if it's been, then you could still reach out to maybe a regional magazine that could do a better feature on it, and you could get featured twice for that extraordinary home.
For me, for an extraordinary home, there are so many ways to present an extraordinary home. I think we've done one. I mean, the project you did with Rachel Parcell, I mean, you brought us that closet and we worked that reveal. And that was the amazing, like the word you said, stratosphere.
Yeah.
Had it ready to go. It's going to come out in March 2020.
Yeah.
Hit the ground.
Yeah.
The ground couldn't be distributed. No one was going into stores to see it. We couldn't fill it. We're getting phone calls from people in Germany. Would you send us a copy? That sort of thing. Like international.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't have anyone in the office answering the phone. It was that.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, I still love how everything worked on that, but that was one of those things you can't control.
No, yeah.
Should do a redo.
I know. No, seriously.
Circa 2023.
Everybody should get a redo of their March 2020.
I think so.
Whatever you were doing in life, you get to redo it.
Redo.
Yes.
Would you rather, like, if a designer has like a project that's awesome and they're like, man, this is going to be great. It's coming down the pipeline. Would you rather them like reach out and say, hey, completion date is this, to kind of get like all the ducks in a row, like before, and you give like the proverbial like thumbs up? Or would you rather see it completed?
No, there are some designers that if they say it's my work and it's this photographer, then I just say, yes, please. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
But that comes from experience of working with somebody and knowing the photographers.
So if you're like,
we'll have to get Brad's short list of photographers when we're done recording. Yeah. A best of album.
So you'd want to like build a relationship with that person first, and probably like be submitting, completed projects, just kind of like.
Yeah, I think that would be hard coming out of the blue to I don't know too many editors that would like agree to something they haven't seen. It could be that, if I were lucky enough to scout the project, I mean, there are some projects we featured that, as long as I know who the photographer is, that I know they can capture it, that the minute I'd walk in, I'd say, just bring it to me, that's kind of that's not that frequent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So speaking of publishing, one of the things that we sit down and do every once in a while is we have a publishing editor that we'll sit down and we'll say, here's some scouting photos. Where do you think that this will belong on a national level? And she'll let us know what people are looking for. And so I would love to know what you're looking for. I'll tell you what Sarah is telling us these days.
I love this.
I think it's an interesting thing.
It's super fascinating.
Yeah, totally. So we actually have a project that we just met with her on. It's the Barbie Dream House. And we're hoping for this thing to launch in tandem with the Barbie movie.
Great.
And we have this amazing client that looks exactly like Barbie, with a lot of surgery. And she's also collected Barbies her whole life. And she is,
wow.
I feel like Utah style needs to feature this. It's in Utah.
Okay.
It's amazing. But we were like, is this going to fit somewhere? And could it go viral with the launch of the movie? Just like put all the marketing minds together on it. So what Sarah is saying is, just so everybody knows, glam is out. We don't want these perfectly styled spaces anymore. We want a more sort of undone, lived in slice of life, just easy styling. You're not for your eye to get caught on any of too many perfectly curated cocktail tables and side tables. And that's out. That's done. So as Susan and I are going to zoom in.
No.
He's looking at Barbie in her dream house. You guys are gonna.
I need a moment
guys,
here.
It is it's that good.
Crazy.
You guys wait for it when it goes viral. Y'all will know.
We're trying to get the timing of it all right. But
yes.
Anyway, so we just know, like, Sue and I are about to go shoot 2 projects in Dallas at the end of this month, and we know in styling those that we're just gonna get like big loose branches that are foraged and put them in a vase, but not the formal flower arrangement anymore. Not these perfectly curated looks. We also know that they want color. They like organic lines, but it's an interesting, I don't know anything else from Sarah that
just like not too many. Again, I feel like a lot of people kind of grew up with like this like formula of 3, like none of that. Like it is just like, it's a slice of life. It's like you throw your sunglasses down and you just kind of have to style. Like it all just like serendipitously fell from heaven and you didn't even like try.
You didn't zhuzh.
Yeah. And it just, it's loose and it's easy and it's
believable. Yeah.
It's believable. It's relatable.
Right.
Nothing shiny, nothing too polished, nothing too perfect. Just very, very lived in and very organic.
Yes.
Is the feedback that we've received.
So we're like, we'll style and we'll be like, no, F it up. We got to F it up a little bit because it's too perfect, right?
Like it feels vacant over there. I'm just like, leave it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Yeah. Vacancy's okay. Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know if you are giving people any of these sort of things where you're like, it's too glam, it's too perfect, it's too gray. We need color.
What are people buying? What do people want to see?
Is there something that you're like, as the editor in chief, my agenda is color. My agenda is, what would you say if to designers looking to get stuff published right now? What do you want?
I don't know that I would go to, I think that's really dialed in and I can see that. And I've had a couple projects come to me that exactly as you described it. And then almost like a theatrical moodiness in the photography. Even that's been kind of to the point where I worry about it's been mooded down so much that as for a print publication, it would worry me that if sometimes when you go to print, it goes a little dark when you go to press. And I would worry that it would get a little muddy maybe.
Yeah.
That's how moody some of but they are that. I do think that we're not looking for just a beautiful room. We're looking for I want to be in that room.
Yes.
Aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
So now for me, maybe having slippers on the floor and a robe over the armchair may work for one person, maybe not for me. But I do agree that if it looks like you have to button your collar and have your shoulders high, that's not what we want to see. We want to there's a comfort, right?
Yeah.
In design.
Yeah.
You guys know how to do comfort, but still I'm eager to see how you do that because you have a little, even if it seems like a sense of sparkle. Even if it's not there, I think I'm eager to see how you do that. I'm sure you
it's
will.
it's an interesting challenge, and it's something that Sue and I are always DMing images back and forth about just the perfect amount of undoneness to this room, right? That's believable. You believe somebody could walk in and just sit down and feel comfortable, right?
Which is what luxury is right now.
Yes.
Luxury.
Yeah.
Like
quiet luxury. Exactly.
Yes, right.
We're not dripping labels. We just really, truly
beautifully.
So I totally buy into that.
Yeah.
We definitely aren't looking for a pretty room to put on a page. We're looking for a room that inspires someone and wants them to be in it.
Yeah.
Like, live in it. Can I live in that space?
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Perfectly said.
Yeah.
But to answer your question on what we don't want, you nailed it. We don't want gray. And I look back and I think of some of the things we've done. And like I said, when we looked at those 25 issues back, we had a project once that the entire house, a mountain house, where in the winter it gets a little dim outside.
Yeah.
Solid gray and not pale gray, like almost sharp.
Cool gray.
And at the time I thought, wow, this is so it right now, because everyone's very editorial. And we look for editorial. We want that little bit of surprise, or even something someone says, oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
There's an emotion to it. Right?
Yeah.
Good.
Totally.
I look back at that now and I go, oh my gosh, that was a
like,
commitment.
I'm so sad.
I'm not sure it was the right one. An echo chamber type of design is really frustrating for me. And I don't think we're
define echo chamber.
It's something that you'll find on Pinterest or Instagram, and then you just keep seeing it and keep seeing it, and it feeds the design. I don't want to call out a design genre, but I will. Farmhouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the white and the black windows and the straw basket and the whole thing. There is great farmhouse design, but to what the kind we want to see a real farmhouse.
Yes.
With some age
Animals.
to it. Get that donkey out there in the yard. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Suzanne has a barn, so she has real life
That's right.
farm
I
animals.
remember
Miniature horses are her neighbors. Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Can you speak to what's happening right now in the marketplace and where it's going design wise?
Digitally print. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I'm thinking more
style?
look. Yeah, more style. I feel like people always want to know. Their biggest question for us on the podcast, and I feel like in Instagram, is what can I do that's going to stick around? What's hot? Like, I don't want to buy something on the clotting edge of design. I want to buy something on the cutting edge so I can appreciate this thing for the next decade, right? Like, we know metals are really fickle right now because silver is so hot right now in fashion, right?
Yeah.
Some people are like, no, I still love brass. I'm going to hang on to brass forever. Right. We were just having this conversation yesterday, and Corey's like, my wife said no matter what, she's only going to like brass. I'm like, you just wait. Give her 5 years. She'll be wearing, everything will be nickel.
I remember the first home I scouted, someone actually said, I'm in, it's going to be brass.
Yeah.
And it was a home in Holiday. Yeah. And I looked at that, I thought, boy, you have a brave homeowner here.
Yeah.
Brass. And now it's, as you say, it's like, how do you break free from brass?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think what you described, I think organic is going to be around for a while. There is that idea through the pandemic, we needed more cocooning, more comfort and all that. And all those rounded corners and all the organic shapes and the nature. I don't think we need that any less now than we did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And pendulum swings, and I look at the old issues of like Metropolitan Home where you had everything had a corner.
Yes, including the lampshades were square.
That's right.
Yes.
There wasn't an arched doorway to be found.
No, nothing soft.
Very sharp.
And I think, I don't remember how comfortable we were in our lives at that point that we could live in that kind of an environment.
Yeah.
I do think, I think that would be it. I think if you can think of comfort but not sloppy, I think we've moved away from the sloppy because we were
from the sweatpants,
pajamas and sweatpants, all that. Comfort is. I think comfort's a luxury, but it's tailored. It's an elevated comfort.
Yeah.
I always worry about things that really all of a sudden become really hot, really fast. And obviously the gray.
Yeah. I feel like TikTok has all these micro trends and you're like, you can't sit and talk about micro trends because it's like out in a heartbeat. And so I feel like more like slower design, like what we're all talking about, slower compared to TikTok, obviously, but something that's going to stick around for a decade where we're not going to have buyer's remorse in 5 minutes if we listen to TikTok about what's hot and what the micro trends are. So it's an interesting thing to see. We're seeing color in a big way. When we go to market, we're seeing a lot of color. Green is like such a major moment. Yellow, brown, I feel like was really beautiful. And reds are coming again.
That
Blue is
I can't wait to
always a
see it,
thing,
but
I feel
the red is the one that, because
I know.
I can remember way back when the red dining
Charlene
room,
did.
right?
Oh
And you're just
gosh,
like,
I know.
right?
Yeah,
But
totally.
I'm feeling the green.
And I think,
frankly.
yes, we feel it in a big way too. It's Suze's favorite color. And so
Neutral. It's what we see outside. So it's easy for people to embrace. And I think it's a good saturation for people to warm up to.
and people have been bringing the tree inside their house for like 5 years now or so. And so we're used to that, but I think we're seeing it now like in fabrics and, in a lot of other ways. So it's really fun to see some of those grays and whites be gone and just really seeing like the life back in. I know Sue in a few podcasts ago recently said something about a colorful room versus a neutral room.
Yeah, I was just saying the neutral rooms, they just don't do anything for like my brain. Like, I don't know, you get so used to experiencing spaces. And when you experience, for me anyway, when my body experiences saturation and experiences color, something happens. And like a light bulb gets turned on and I have a total data upgrade in my head.
Suzanne always says, I can't feel anything in a neutral room.
Feel anything in a neutral room.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's a physical reaction.
Yeah, it's
physical
just like a
reaction.
brain numbing thing where she's like, can't compute.
No, nerve endings are dead. I just have
That's
nothing.
great.
And then you put her in
So-
color and it's just like this girl gets a heartbeat again and she wants to have a conversation.
Shoot. Like, let's do something.
Yeah, you do feel something in a room with color. So we're excited. I think challenging ourselves to always use color. If our client obviously wants color, that we're really using our paint decks today.
But do you find that you have to help your clients help themselves when it comes to color?
I think we try and inform them. I think we ask enough questions to hopefully like get out of them what we see in them.
Yeah.
Because I think like people are their own worst critics. Like from our lens, they have a lot of really interesting experiences. They've gone to a lot of great places. Now let's see how we can interpret that into a space. When you felt that feeling, when you were in this place, how do I get that back into your home to remind you
And then it
how
becomes
cool you are?
Yes.
Right.
And then it becomes emotional design.
Yes.
And that's powerful. And it means something to them.
that's timeless because
and-
it's their story.
And that's when they cry when they walk through their house. It's like they feel something.
they feel
because it's
themselves.
them.
They
Sure.
feel themselves
Yeah.
like light up.
Totally.
But they may not. I think I find that when it comes to color, there's a fear.
Yeah.
And I think it's
100%.
been pummeled into us that
Yeah.
you'll that house that you're going to live in for the next 30 years, but the resale,
It'll never sell.
you better keep those white walls for the next 30
Jesus.
years. Right? But most recently we have in this state, we have 3 or 4 parade of homes. I think
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
places have that. And I was attending one a few days ago and I really enjoy watching the attendees' reactions to
right.
these spaces.
Yeah.
Color rooms are always where they stop and marvel and they'll either love it or hate it. Most of them love it.
Polarizing.
Or they'll say, I don't love that color, but the feeling of this room, because it
Uh-huh.
won't be an accent wall, it will be a commitment. The
Yep.
whole room, ceiling, everything.
Mhm.
Which tells me that I think we're hungry for it, but we're afraid of it. So I almost wonder if that's when you guys step in and can translate into that's part of what you're wanting. You just don't know it yet.
Mhm.
It sure shows well on in our magazine. I mean,
does.
seriously,
Yeah.
I get a room with just this color that's almost maybe like, what are they doing?
From
I just
edge
raised
to
my
edge.
hand. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. That's so fun. And what a fun thing as an editor to get to tell the story of the people and the color. And
I have the best job in the world.
you know what I mean? It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. So good. Okay. We have on here, what do you feel like makes a great cover? Do you know it when you're, I don't know if
I
you're
think
at
I
this.
do.
Yeah.
Frankly, I think
you
I
You
do.
know,
years,
you
that's
should.
yeah.
I mean, right? You've been doing this 20 years and you must be like, well, that's the cover. It's obvious, but I'm going to keep working through this.
And then there are images I just love. I mean, I think that is going to be the star of the entire magazine.
Yeah.
And then we put it up as a cover, and then we put the masthead over it, and it gets lost in the trees or in the views of the mountains or something. It ruins the chandelier, and I go, drats. And then I go back, okay, what was plan B?
Yeah.
But there are things. I mean,
Yeah. But you're probably usually right, like 9.5 times out of 10.
well, I think I am.
Yeah.
But the art director may not agree with me. So
Yeah.
between selling the art director, although I have to say we're typically in agreement,
Yeah.
and then the publisher weighs in, and she would have obviously, a horse in the race.
So 3 of you kind of battle out what the cover is going to be.
Yeah, and I think it's more of there's rarely even a negotiation. I think by the time we always present, I mean, the publisher gets the final look, and sometimes she's very has an opinion, and other times she said, "Well, if that's how you feel about it," and sometimes it's all kind of a game. And there are some issues that are extremely good issues with amazing shots inside, and the cover is really difficult. It's the strangest thing because a great image doesn't always make a great cover.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have seen other magazines that don't care whether their masthead shows or their cover lines show. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some where they must have the branding is so strong with those books that even if you can't even find their logo or their masthead, it doesn't matter. They're in.
Yeah.
Most of us look at it as brand, and the image has to represent.
Has
brand.
to be the hero.
Yeah, this question kind of came up because I was so curious because I did an internship with Southern Accents.
Yes.
I remember
and by the way, I have like 4 shelves of Southern Accents. I love that.
I do too. It's so sad that went under. But anyway, and I remember when I was there, I asked Karen Carroll, the editor there, I'm like, what makes a great cover? After this question, she's just like, a colorful dining room, colorful dining chair. She's just like, whenever we have that cover, a cover that has dining chairs in a color and their saturation, those sell the best. People grab them off the shelf. And I'm like, I wonder if that is just like universal. If there's like some key thing, you're just like, if I can get one of those, at least like 2 of the 4, quarters of the year, those are going to sell just because of the draw that it has visually.
That is
what year was that?
That was in like 2004. So it was a long time ago.
Almost 20 years ago.
Right.
When they were like
just
opinionated. There was like this glossy green one that she like took off the shelf and she's like, that one, that sold out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and they probably had, I mean, we don't do focus groups on our covers and we don't really, we think we know because based on what reality is, it's our perception of what did well, but we would know what sells off the newsstands and we have to replenish or it brings in new subscribers more.
Yeah.
And it may not just be the cover, but we would credit that. It's funny because I was looking at, was I listening to, there was another national and the best-selling cover was a dining room. It was Elle Decor.
Interesting.
And it was very white. And that was the cover. I would say our best cover, whether it was I think just in terms of when anyone look at all the covers, was actually it was white and it had the homeowner was this design lover. She was also just a beautiful person, beautiful woman, and the designers were very much. They were just a team, and she had this just bright pink dress. And she ran across the image and her heels kicked up and there was a piece of art that kind of mimicked that form.
Amazing.
And it was stark white with
I can picture it.
A glossy white staircase going up.
Yeah.
It was spectacular. And I still look at that and it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite covers.
Good. People do love to look at people. I know that's something that I learned from being in advertising school that, people want to look at people. And I know from our own Instagram account, if there's a human in the image, then it's going to perform 4x what any empty room, beautiful room, but it's just going to perform better because people just want to look at people.
So when you were talking to the woman about what you should be shooting in your home, animals, right?
Yeah.
Was that also like if you can get the homeowner in the shot? Was there any discussion about people or having you guys in the shot?
Did Sarah say anything about getting people in? I feel like she's more looking for the home. Yeah. If we have a homeowner that we think makes sense, which usually 9 out of 10 times we won't. But in the case of Barbie Dream House, where some
of our best work hasn't even been photographed because like they are private and they don't want to be their stuff to be shown.
Yes. Right.
So
totally. But if they have an animal or if I'm nearby and I'm going to go grab my own dog and put it in the picture, then I'll do that. But we were shooting last week and this gal had 4 Savannah cats. And we
Oh my
were like,
gosh.
they like look like mini cheetahs.
Yeah.
And we were just like, can they just slither in and out of this dining room? And sure enough,
ridiculous.
yeah. And it was great.
So
It was like
much
kind of
fun.
like adding an animal print shoe to an outfit. You know what I mean? It
Only you guys
and
could
like,
figure that
it was
one
like
out.
this fun little slice of
was
life
the
where it
best.
just sort of gave the room a pulse. And so
Did they blend into the animal print carpet run going up the stairs?
they were the only animal print
How
in
do
the
you get a
room.
cat
So
to
it
do
worked.
anything that
I
you don't
know.
want it to
Have
do?
the home
For
one.
real. She had treats and toys and whatnot, but they were actually quite lovely.
They were lovely.
I remember leaving thinking I might need to get one of those just because they're so designer.
I know, it looked good in every
It's an
single
accessory.
room.
Yes.
It was beautiful.
You know what I think's
Totally.
interesting about this conversation too is,
What?
I mean, not everyone's a magazine lover,
Yeah.
probably, right?
Yeah.
But if you are, this discussion is it's I don't know. I was just thinking about this, like how many people are going to find this interesting, and then I thought, magazines have particularly shelter publications
Mhm.
and fashion publications
Yeah.
have this distinct advantage in that glossy
Mhm.
and color and it's and you're not forced to read a magazine. It's a
Mhm.
luxury to find time to sit,
Yeah.
as long as it's a good one. Like if that's where we're very careful about, boy, don't dumb down the paper.
Uh-huh.
Make sure the printer's on and make sure the
Yes.
because this is a piece, like fashion is the same way. Let
Yeah.
me sit down and just
Poor.
enjoy this.
Uh-huh.
There's nothing coming at you online. You
Yeah.
have pop-up ads, you have all these things.
Totally.
You get to pace your thing. You get to decide you get to step into that room and live in it for a minute, and then you get to leave.
Mhm.
You can come back later and tab it or whatever. And I just think that's how I do it when I get magazines.
Mhm.
I actually set them on the entry table,
Yep.
and I won't let myself immediately. As an editor, I want to go through and see what's going on there. But as a reader, I just want to set that aside.
Mhm.
There'll be some time with a drink in hand, sitting in a quiet corner, and that's my moment of having it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the beauty of magazines.
Yeah.
particularly
You just
this-
digest them slowly.
Mhm.
There's no amygdala hijack. You're not the 3-second thing on TikTok and everything else. You're just like
Exactly.
life in slow motion, filling the pages. Nothing makes me sadder than Better Homes and Gardens thin pages.
Oh.
And it's so thin, you feel like you're going to get the print on your fingertips. Like it's going to rub off. You know what I mean? And it's just such and the images aren't gorgeous. And you're like, no, we really need that thick, glossy, just to really let this thing shine. And I swear, much like when we're getting a project shot, the room's beautiful, but when you see it in the lens or the photograph, you're just like, that room is so amazing in your
Right.
camera.
When it's given parameter.
Yes.
No, it just kind of like crops it in. You're just like, oh my gosh.
And then take
Totally
that
agree.
gorgeous image and print it on glossy paper in a magazine. And it's the most amplified, most beautiful version of the image of that home it will ever be, I think. And so
you're like, that's a book cover.
it's like on
That
a
is book
stage.
cover,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. It's so, so beautiful. And I'm not a reader. And so I love a cocktail table book with big, gorgeous images. I love Utah Style and Design with big, gorgeous images. And I can just visually read the room without having to necessarily read. If I'm interested in, who's that designer? And then I'll hurry and go through it all. I shouldn't be telling an editor
I was
in
just going to
chief
say, as a
this.
writer,
Yeah.
you're killing me.
No.
I know. Everybody else here likes to read. I'm
yeah.
No, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Magazines, like, it's a good snapshot. Everybody, even if you're not a crazy reader, like I get tired and I start to fall asleep if I'm reading a book, but a magazine I digest because it's an article like very specific about a home. And I'm like, I like what you were talking about.
It's
like
not a
sitting
lot of
down
reading either.
And you can kind of take it in, and I want to know the story. That's a beautiful thing is like you have these spaces and they're so specific to the human and we design for the human. So I find it really interesting, and you would, too.
Oh, for sure.
I'm
And
guilty
it's-
of it too,
It's
though.
not a ton of reading, but
Yeah.
usually, like if you're fascinated with what am I looking at, you're like, I've got to read this
Gotta
bit.
find more about
That's
her.
where the cut lines and the captions. Some people say I
Yeah.
never read the story, but I always read what's on the image.
yeah.
But those are in some publications. That's all sourcing.
Uh-huh.
What's the light fixture from? It doesn't explain the
gooey,
solution that
ooga nooga.
story,
Yeah.
that design
Yes.
problem solving. Maybe the design did or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But I actually had interviewed a notable designer here, and he said his enthusiasm for being in the magazine was, I don't even, or being in a magazine. I not just ours,
Nuh-uh.
but kind of said, and I'm interviewing him, and I have to say, there's a lot of work. Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes every one of those stories. If you think about the work you do to get it ready, and the photographer, and then for me to do the interviews and write, it's, that little 8 pages is a ton of work.
Yeah.
And he said, well, sure, ask questions, but I will tell you, I never read the stories. And I thought, let me just make an observation here. Don't tell that to the writer before he writes about you, because you've already lost him a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But in the end, I did get a nice note, and he said it was well done.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, well, at least he's read one. So
yes, for sure.
yeah.
For sure. I always
You guys do a
pour
great
through
job.
ours.
You
Yeah,
do a
you
beautiful
really
job.
do.
You're a great writer.
Well, you have to remember.
And you make us sound a lot better too. I'm like, I know I didn't say that quote as good as he just said that he did.
No.
Well, he may have said that you guys would never be. But,
No, you're so good at making us always sound really good and look good, and the typography and the color. And it's an art form. It's beautiful.
Brilliance though, like you get so many people that are just like master of their realm, you know,
right.
and it just elevates. You have a good photographer, you have all the craftsmen, you have good designers, you have a great willing client, you have a good writer, and then you get this magazine on a platter, and it's beautiful.
I mean, that's our job, right?
End of day, you're just like, gosh, I'm so proud of what we do.
Yeah, and rewarded too. I mean,
super rewarding.
I think the idea of I look at our magazine like probably the most challenging and the most rewarding thing, or both the same. Like creating a magazine is like throwing a dinner party.
Yes,
you want to have a couple really A-list guests, and then you want to have the others that do, create some conversation. Then you want to throw a wild card thing in there that they think.
Crazy
I don't really know that, but I guess I should know that. And that's kind of the mix. And like you, probably it's a fortunate job. I'm not counting digits or something that never ends. There's a start to the project, and in the end, there's a print thing that lands in my hands. And then I get to take a breath and I start into the next one. It's a really nice pace. And I would imagine the same with your projects. Right? Yeah. If it was constantly just installing carpeting for a living, there's no, I don't know.
It gives you a minute. I feel like because, and it gives you a minute to sort of celebrate the win, Yes. And you don't always get to have wins in life, or if you do, you might not. I'm not good at celebrating my life wins and being like, that was a monster day. This just happened. We should go eat cake. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just like as old as I am today. No, I really don't. We actually for a year, before the pandemic, Chicago flies the W when they have a win. Baseball, I think, Chicago Cubs. My husband's from Chicago. So anyway, he's like, you guys need to fly the W whenever something wins. So we installed a flag in the office and we're like, great day, you guys. This just happened. I'm like, we have to start celebrating wins because I feel like I'm losing all the time. There's just always some little thing that comes up in business or at an install. There's always 10% of the job is claims. That darn
20.
That darn lampshade's dented, otherwise it's perfect. Or, there's things that happen all the time and you can feel like you're constantly losing at life. But when you do get published, I think it's the greatest W that any of us can experience. You know what I mean? And it feels like the project is complete, that you just celebrated 50 people's talents, right? From every craftsman, everybody coming together, the beautiful copy that you write, the art director choosing the perfect type, and that, you know what I mean? Like it's this massive amount of talent, and we don't tell you how to write the magazine, and you don't tell us how to design the house, but somehow it all comes together in this beautiful crescendo where we all just get to hand over heart, feel like
that's such a nice way of putting it, because that's really what it is.
It really is, and it's so big. And I think when Suzanne says the goal of a designer, when we write down why we want to do it is to get published is one of the big things, and when it happens, you're like, I can hang my hat on this.
Guess we're done.
And you throw the homeowner in there, and you think of someone who's willing to share their life and their personal likes and dislikes. And I don't underestimate that. I years ago had mine published, my own published, and I always remember what that experience is like. Yeah, because you never want to.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah. It is vulnerable.
It is vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just keep futzing with it and keep trying to perfect it and steam the sheets. And there's always a million more things you can do, but you're like, let's just take the picture so I can have my life back. Well, but it is very vulnerable.
You guys have to share with us. I have the best job in the world. Actually.
This is our year of capturing. A fun job. Like the last 2 years, we've just spent in design mode and in installation and stuff. And this is the year we're capturing a lot of work.
Nice.
So we will be sharing more with you, which is very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. 2 more questions.
Sure.
Number one is what inspires you, or how do you get inspired?
I was thinking about that question, and I have to say, I just think it's beauty. I mean, that's such a weird coined term, but I like to have beauty around me. And however you want to define what that is at the moment, I've never understood. I absolutely have no understanding of people don't have a pride of place. Like people have a home, but they don't care what it is, because I think you can elevate your life with your surroundings. Right? And I'll go to a restaurant and suffer okay food if it's an amazing decor or an experience. Or a garden that you can, that inspires me. I think I find inspiration just in new things, like experiences, travel for sure. In fact, we cover travel in our magazine, and it's outside of Utah, because I think readers, we all travel, right? But I think readers, I think that's just part of the whole thing of the package of the magazine. We want them to leave feeling more elevated than they did when they stepped into the magazine. And so just experiences and seriously talking with, like I said, I don't know anyone else who has the entree to go talk to a homeowner about their home without even really knowing them, and have them explain why they have a chair that's like this, or their bedroom's designed like this. They wouldn't tell their neighbors that, but there's this guy that walks in and let's talk. And then to have people like you guys that can talk, you talk the talk. I just soak it up. I mean, that's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
It's just the best part of the job, really.
Oh, so great. Yeah. That's a great answer. Okay. And then this is a question that we ask everybody that comes on the podcast. How do you define luxury?
That's such a loaded question,
isn't it? I know. It's a hard one. And if you need a minute, this question came from Martin Lawrence Bullard. They asked him in one of the shelter magazines, probably like 4 or 5 years ago. And we ask everybody that comes on, and they asked him how he defines luxury. And he said, luxury is not saving anything for best. It's he's like, I use my Hermes butter knife every day to butter my toast. I eat on my china. I drink with my nice goblets. I don't just pull them out for Thanksgiving. I sleep on my best sheets every day. So luxury is not saving anything for best. Just live with all your best stuff every day. Yeah. And so we were like, what a great answer. And then we've had, really great answers that were like having friends your whole life is a luxury. Same friends.
Time is a luxury.
Time is a luxury.
I've thought about that. I would say time, but then I immediately think, but how does your home help with that? Yeah. And I think it's a luxury to have a home that works for you. I mean, a beautiful home that doesn't function and provide you time to enjoy it is not a beautiful home. Yeah. And so I think that's really important. Does that actually translate through an image? Maybe not, but it certainly translates through the story we would tell about that. I think there's a sense of, there's trust, I think, is a luxury, particularly in a home. Like, do you trust that what you have is going to make you live as how you want to live? Like and is it authentically represent you? There's something about that. Like, you totally trust your home, and it's just real to you. I think that is such a hard one. I do love that example. Yeah. But I don't think it's not opulence anymore. I mean, I think of the 80s sense of luxury, and you think extravagance, opulence, and all of that. That could be. But comfort is absolute luxury. I actually think of that. I think that's probably number one in our little realm of the magazine. If we can translate a sense of comfort, but elevated comfort, then people think that's luxury.
Yeah, totally. Especially with quiet luxury being kind of an emphasis today, which I just really love. It feels super honest. Yeah. And it feels like you're just living well the best way you know how. And it doesn't have to come with labels or tags or anything like that. It's just like perfectly fit for the way that you want to live.
I agree with you entirely.
Yeah. I really love that movement. It feels really, really right. So yeah, that's a fantastic definition of luxury. Brad Mee, thank you so much for coming on Dear Alice.
This was so fun.
Fun. I know
Let's
our
do
listeners
this next week. Again, round 2.
Yes, I know our listeners are going to love this. If you guys have any questions for us, we can always create a podcast around them. Just send them to dearalice@alicelanehome.com. Thanks again to Brad Mee for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like our show, please leave a 5-star rating.